If you've been riding the ridiculous diet roller coaster, losing weight, gaining it back, and feeling a little bit worse each time, this episode is for you. My guest today is Jenn Trepeck. She is the host of the podcast Salad with a Side of Fries, and she's the author of the brand new book, Uncomplicating Wellness, which I want to give you an opportunity to check out. We're going to tell you about it in the interview. So listen for that. And yes, we are going to talk about the diet roller coaster, how she broke free and how she helps others to do the same. Here are three big questions that we are going to answer as we walk through this conversation together. Why does every diet cycle or every yo-yo, every time we go up and down with dieting, why it actually makes you less healthy? We're going to have that explained. Even if you end up at the same weight each and every time, why each cycle makes you less healthy. We're going to talk about that. How you can stop the yo-yo and create a plan that works for your real life, even if your real life is a messy life and it's set up for you for success, even on the days where things don't go so perfectly. We're going to talk about that. And then third, what's the real reason wellness feels so confusing and how you can uncomplicate it. I know you're going to enjoy this. Here's my interview with Jenn Trepeck.
It was the summer between high school and college. I wasn't dancing a million hours a week anymore. I started taking birth control, like all of the things changed at once. And now this thing that seemed to impact my family more than me was now my thing too. And so I was like, okay, I know what to do because I watched everybody do this my whole life. And I did every diet under the sun, like gained and lost over and over, lived on that yo-yo.
Yeah.
And I just sort of thought, well, this is what it is. You know, it's how it looks. This is what happens. And genetics are real. And all of these factors were at play. And then, so I graduated, fast forward, after college. I'm still living on this roller coaster. I moved to New York City from Michigan. And ultimately, like, worlds collided for me because I was looking for something to do outside of my full-time job to eventually just work for myself / retire early, which is not the case,
Awesome.
right? When we
Yes.
work for ourselves, opposite of retire early. And then, I had this saga of my own health and weight management going on. And those worlds collided when I learned about the curriculum that I since based my entire practice on. But the interesting piece in that aha moment, I saw people who were following this approach. And one woman, and by the way, every time I tell this story, I'm like, if you are out there and this is you, like, please tell me. So
Yeah.
I was hearing this woman tell her story of removing like 150 pounds and keeping it off, mind you. And anything she said after that, I didn't even hear. That's why I don't know what her name is, because I was in my own head from that moment, like staring at this woman, and it like did not compute to me. Because I'm looking at her and she's telling me the equivalent of another human was attached to her. And I can't see where like 10 pounds could have been on this woman's body. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And I had this moment with myself that was like, Jennifer, they know something you don't know. Because based on everything you know, that doesn't compute. And it was this aha moment of get out of your own way. I worked with a coach. It completely changed my life, like the only thing that allowed me to say I'd kicked my food issues. And then I was like, everyone deserves this information. I felt like it was the nutrition education we're all supposed to know and no one ever taught us. Like we all have these bodies and we're just supposed to know what to do with them,
In the modern
And
world, yeah.
exactly. And so then I was like, well, everybody deserves this. And then why isn't this what we learned? And how did those things come to be? And I became an insatiable student. Read every book I could get my hands on, went to every seminar, workshop, course, all of the things, and started a health coaching practice on the side of my full-time job. So I was a photo shoot producer, I worked in hedge funds, I did all of the things, and nights and weekends, I was helping people help themselves with this information.
Mhm.
Fast forward 12 years later, 2019, I left my full-time job, launched my podcast, Salad with a Side of Fries. Fast forward, now I'm sitting here talking to you, and my book is in the world called Uncomplicating Wellness.
I love it, and I love that title. I know we talked about that
Thank
before
you.
we started going, and I didn't I just saw that you had a book coming out.
Yeah,
Amazing. I love that.
thanks.
Um, wow. Okay, so I have a few questions
Yeah,
because you just fast forwarded through a lot for us.
I did. I did.
Um, you mentioned the idea of getting over food issues.
Yeah.
Um, could you speak to some of those? Like, what were some of the things that for you you had to overcome? Because I'm guessing they were different issues maybe than what presented on the surface, the things that you were.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
w one piece of it was this, the good bad. Especially when we did all the diets, like, in my house, we did every fad diet that existed in the '80s, '90s, 2000s, right? Like, every single one, like, low carb, no carb, sugar-free, fat-free, like, all of the things. And so, there was always this list of good foods or bad foods, and
Mhm.
that inherently, when you choose those things, all of a sudden it makes you good or bad. And the reality is that it's not the case at all, but it is what this diet culture, now wellness culture, makes us think or believe. So that was a huge thing. I think also in all of that, I mean, there isn't a culture in the world that doesn't, I've chills as I'm saying this, that doesn't convene over food, that doesn't build community over food. And then when we have a quote unquote issue, we're told that eating for any other reason than fuel is a problem. And so there was also this navigating and for
Right,
myself and for my clients, really coming to terms with like, wait a minute, no, it's not.
right, right.
Right? Like there are a lot of valid reasons to choose food. And the difference maker is really our awareness and our intention and the energy behind when we're eating those things.
Mm,
And then certainly because eat less, move more was what we were all told, that inherently then had periods of, you know, I don't know that it would be diagnosed binge eating, but certainly living in those extremes of perfection on the quote unquote diet and then no holds barred eating everything in sight. I remember
mm,
times like I love cookie dough. My podcast was almost called French fries and cookie dough because it is two foods that I will never go up.
okay, nice.
And, you know, one of those, like I remember like I could get some cookie dough and like chow. And then all of a sudden you like realize after the fact, you're like, what just happened?
Right.
Right? Like we have these moments of feeling completely out of control. And then the antidote to that is often, well, just don't keep it in the house. And what I help people do is learn how to have it in the house and have it not have a voice,
Mhm.
not call you from the freezer, even though it's there,
Yeah,
so there's a lot of pieces to that. And it happens in layers.
yeah, 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 and you mentioned, and I think we kinda started digging into it already, but
Yeah.
understanding where this came from, like, how did we get here? And I think, like I said, I think we're on the way there already, but is there more behind that? Like, as you were learning, were there more, like, light bulbs or like, "Oh, now I can kind of see maybe from a cultural place, like, how this happened?"
Absolutely. I think, part of this is in the beginning of the book where I say, you are not the problem, the system is. And when I say the system, it's not just diet culture, as we talked about, it's every piece of our lives, and I don't mean it in a malicious way, right? But our medical system, we expect our doctors to know this information. It's just not what they were taught. So they
Mhm.
don't. But we expect them to know it. We expect them to give us that guidance. And then the way the incentive structures are set up, it reinforces behavior and information that doesn't translate into long-term health. When we look at all of the other, like, social media and supplementation and all these pieces, like, I do a lot in my practice with supplementation, and part of what ends up happening with a lot of the stuff that we see advertised to us is that their objective is fast results, which doesn't necessarily mean long-term results. And that's because they know that you're going to walk away if you don't get the fast result. So their goal is not the same as your goal, but we assume that it is.
Right.
And it's because, and again, not in a malicious way, it's just the way it works in most business, in our society, in social media, right? Like if social media can feed you information that keeps you confused, you know what you do? You
They
keep coming back and you keep
Yeah,
engaging and you
yeah.
keep watching more. So it's it's where all of the pieces align, and all of a sudden we're in the middle of that wild Venn diagram of 8 million circles. And we're like, why is this so hard? Why is this so confusing? And
Mhm.
it's like, well, of course it is,
Yeah.
you
Wow.
know?
Um, as you were just sharing that, I was thinking about, you mentioned that, they're trying to get results, short-term results, not long-term. You want long-term. It made me think even of the title of your book, Wellness, right? And is our results necessarily the same as wellness?
Right.
But then my question, and this might be a heavy one, but how do we begin to put the focus in the right place? Like how do we make that change within ourselves of like these results, they might be great and I'd love them to be quick, but it's not true
Yeah.
wellness at its core. It's not really helping
Yeah.
me.
That is fundamentally the entire book.
Okay.
And so I love that you
Great
asked that
job.
question, though. Thanks. But this book is not a plan. You don't need another plan. You have plans up to your eyeballs, right? What we need is a lens. We need a new way of looking at all of these plans so that we can choose the one that's best fitting for us.
Mhm.
So, what is wellness is a fundamental question that actually each of us has to answer for ourselves. What is wellness for you? For me, it's having my health to do all of the things that I want to do in this life, to be with the people that I want to be with, to enjoy all of the things that I enjoy, including food,
Mm.
right? And so I define wellness as including every aspect of health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all the pieces. And then saying, okay, if this is my goal, if this is wellness to me, does this plan get me there and keep me there?
Mhm.
So, with that question, we can then say, if my plan has me opting out of life, meaning I'm not participating in parties. I'm not enjoying my day to day. I'm not having social plans because I need to eat at home, or I'm not having social plans because I need to get in the sweatiest, hardest, most difficult workout on the planet, right? If your plan has you opting out of life, it's not your plan for life. And what ends up happening is that we choose these things that we can do for a finite period of time. And then we end up staying in this black, white, on, off, good, bad place instead of saying, wait a minute, this is life. And ultimately, what gets us to where we want to be is consistency. Then I need the plan that's based on my most difficult, hectic, wild day, not a plan that's based on the textbook, perfect, easy life that actually doesn't exist day.
Yeah. Nice. I like that. I like that a lot. And I like what gets me there and keeps me there being
Yeah.
such an important part of that. Um,
And that translates, by the way, like into fundamental health, right? Like a lot of the diets and things that we've done that create movement on the scale for a finite period of time, they quote unquote work
mhm.
in the short term. What we're actually losing when that scale goes down is water, muscle, and bone, not fat. Well, by the way, muscle is metabolically active. Muscle dictates metabolism. So if what we're losing is water, muscle, and bone, we are losing health. Then, because whatever plan we followed to get there is not sustainable, we go back to old eating habits and the scale stops working. So we're frustrated and we're like, forget it. We go back to these old eating habits. We're taking in more food. We're taking in higher glycemic food, likely. We're gaining that weight back, but we have less muscle on our body to be burning that extra fuel, and we're gaining the weight back as fat. So every time we're on that yo-yo, we lose it as water, muscle, and bone, gain it back as fat. Lose it as water, muscle, and bone, gain it back as fat. Over time, we could end up at the same number on the scale that we were before, but by body composition, we are fatter at that same number. It's not a coincidence that you feel fluffier, even though the scale says the same thing that you've seen it say before. And so then it says, okay, wait a minute. That's not health either,
Mhm.
right? That's not helping my blood work. That's not helping my longevity. And so we can start to reevaluate long term, right? What's the plan that we can maintain and keeps us there, builds muscle, removes fat?
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we actually changing here? It's important to know. And I respect you very much for being someone. I mean, you have a way of saying things that speak right to the heart, but you
Oh,
also
thank you.
know your stuff, and I can tell that as well, and I
Thank
appreciate that
you.
very
I
much.
appreciate that.
Um, I know we talked about the book, and I want to end there because it's almost ready, and by the time this episode comes out, we're gonna have just
Yes,
released that book. Could
it
we
is. Do you want to see it?
show it? Yeah, absolutely. There it is.
There it is for everybody watching on video versus listening.
Yes,
Yeah.
uncomplicating
Uncomplicating
wellness.
wellness. Yep.
Amazing. Oh man, I love it. Um,
Yeah.
what do you want people after they read that or as they're reading it? Like what's the biggest shift that you want to create for them as they consume that?
So I think it's two things. And it is, in fact, what I am hearing from the advanced readers. So I'm thrilled to share this. So one piece is it's a weight lifted.
Mm,
It is like you can take your shoulders out of your ears and relax a minute to recognize you're not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. And then the second piece is that you are the magic bullet that you're looking for everywhere else. You know, you know the foods that support you, that make you feel your best. You know the days when you feel better than the days you don't. You know where to focus your attention. And so part of what this book gives you is the permission to follow that. Instead of following all of the rules and all of the plans and everything else that's out there, you know. And so it's a different way of approaching everything we're seeing and everything that's coming at us so that we can then say, wait a minute, that's interesting. How does that work with what I know works for me? And then we can kind of put the blinders on and make some progress.
Nice. I love it. You're not broken. You're the magic bullet.
Exactly.
Sweet.
Thank you.
That feels like a great place to set it down. However, could you
Yeah.
talk just briefly about your podcast? I want to honor that here on this show. Tell us about that. Like, what do we find there, and how can people get in touch with you there?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So the podcast is Salad with a Side of Fries. So if that gives you any inclination about my approach to life and food. So everything there is wellness, nutrition. My specialty is weight management, metabolic health, cardiovascular health. So a lot of the conversations take that approach. But the truth is, we cover everything wellness related. Every Wednesday is a full-length episode. Half of those are interviews. Half of those are things that I call like my content or conversations, topics that I want to cover.
Mhm.
And then every Friday, we do a bite-sized bonus episode called a Nutrition Nugget. And those are like 15 minutes or less on a single thing. Sometimes they're a food, sometimes it's, a product, sometimes it's a mental reframe or a mantra or little things that help keep us going. So if this is interesting to you, all of this and more on Salad with a Side of Fries. All social media, I am at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. So please send a message. I truly love hearing from you. It is my absolute favorite thing. It might take me a minute to respond, but I promise I will get back to you.
That's awesome. Great. Jenn Trepeck, and the book is Uncomplicating Wellness. Check it out.
Yes.
The podcast, Salad with a Side of Fries. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much to Jenn for joining us today. Remember, I think this is a huge message from our conversation. You are not broken. You already have the answers you're looking for. You just need permission to trust yourself. If you want to learn more from Jenn, check out our podcast, Salad with a Side of Fries, and grab her book, Uncomplicating Wellness, which was just released last week. It is available now. You can find her on social media or on her website, asaladwithasideoffries.com. Thanks so much for listening. I loved being here with you on the Begin Within Health show. If this episode resonated with you, please rate and review the show. Share it with someone that you care about. I'll talk with you soon. And until then, please keep taking good care of yourself.